Hello there and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today I'm going to be going over Scream from 1996. Well, revisiting it because it was the first review I've ever done on my channel, and that was 2 years ago. And it is the 25th anniversary since this movie premiered. I got to see that in theaters. It was one of the most magical nights of my life, and there are so many great things that I want to talk about, so I figured I would go over this one again. With 79 days till Scream 5 is released in theaters, we already have a trailer for it, and it was amazing and brilliant, and I loved everything about it. Seeing Sidney again after 25 years of this one, so many secrets in store, so much nostalgia. It was beautiful and amazing. This is one of the most iconic slashers of all time, a great 90s film. It was directed by Wes Craven, and it is my favorite slasher film and horror film and film in general. It was groundbreaking, and it still is. It meant so much to me. It still does. And it broke all of the rules, and it reinvented the genre. And with all of that being said, let's get into one of the best movies ever made, Scream from 1996. What was great about this movie was the opening. It was haunting and eerie, and it was scary. I remember growing up in a farm town just like this. It was cold, and there was fog everywhere. It was just the perfect location for a setting like this. Having your victim be terrorized by menacing calls was something completely new, and I love it. It's one of my favorite concepts. Having Drew Barrymore being this opening scene is one of the most iconic scenes in horror movie history, and it is absolutely captivating. It is one of the most traumatizing scenes I had ever seen as a child, and it completely changed my life and my viewpoint on movies and storytelling, and probably the reason that I went to film school and am now an actor on Goldberg's ABC. And it's just so terrifying, and it's a true event. Well, it's based on true events, but what I mean by that is it's people on people violence. There's nothing more gut-wrenching than a false soul trying to manipulate you and steal your innocence, and I literally can't convey all of the parallels that I have with Sidney, and she's been such an inspiration through me and out my life, and I love how she fights throughout this film. Having it take place at night and having this killer be so very real was completely different because there wasn't a supernatural take. And the mask, this mask is absolutely iconic, and it looks like a morphed version of a face in pain. It's supposed to be sad and distraught, and it is. It's completely unnerving to look at and to be chased by and terrified by, you know? This is Ghostface's weapon that he uses. It is a buck knife 120. It is 7.5 inches long, plus the handle. It is a huge weapon. When you compare it to your arms and your hands and things like that, it's so easy to see how this knife can go through people's body parts and stuff. So imagine being chased down by this, and this is used for gutting deer. So it's sharp, it's terrifying, it's a thick blade, and it's the reason why Ghostface is so menacing to me, is how awful it is to have a human instinct to pick up a knife and start terrifying people with it and eviscerating people, you know, committing violence and crimes and actions against people. That's awful, it's terrible, and it's what makes it so horrific. The fact that Sidney Prescott is a 17-year-old girl who is in high school, and she has a boyfriend and a friend group, and all of that gets flipped on its head whenever she discovers that her mother has not been who she's thought of her entire life. She ends up getting murdered, and we pick up a year after that, and a series of murders start happening again, and of course she's anxious and probably is wondering if it's tied to her. We feel very unnerved by the fact that there is someone trying to manipulate her psyche, and when you tell someone one thing and then you do another, it's an awful place to be in, and it's an awful emotion to have to overcome, and that kind of psychological breaking in someone, you know, it really says something to the fact that Sidney is able to withstand so much torture. And that's what I admire about her, is her resilience and her innocence and her inner will and her purity, and how she's a fighter and how she'll never stop fighting. Some great points I would like to make about this is that it was ahead of its time, it's completely still relevant, and it is also a great time capsule. It still feels like a great 90s film back whenever technology was suspicious, you know, like, oh my god, why do you have a cell phone? Every time that someone was supposed to die, they did it in a way that was completely different, or they were aware of the rules. It wasn't people who were just doing the same things. And I know this has been said over and over and time again, and we know this, but it was refreshing even now to see it on the big screen, and I was completely blown away, and it gave me such an amazing perspective to be able to see this movie that big. I noticed every single detail, and I noticed how terrifying it was. And you've got to think about how much anxiety the killer/killers must have to be able to pull this off. These are just teenagers. That's what the scariest part about this is, that it's just someone you know. It's always someone you know. That's actually the tagline of the very newest movie. And it's the truest thing ever. I've had many people in my life ghostface me, where they tell you one thing and they feed you one thing, and they tell you, no, I love you, and no, I'm not trying to hurt you, and then they show up to your house in the middle of the night and literally try to fucking kill you. Like, I've had people have those actions towards me where they purposely say one thing and then do something else to watch you suffer, and it's sickening. It's really sickening. So to be able to overcome this kind of trauma and watch someone go through it is one of the scariest things I think you can experience, especially through storytelling and through cinema. Because Michael's great, Jason's great, Chucky's hilarious, and Freddy's the bomb, but people are the ones that are the scariest things that you can think of at night, because they apply to us. And that's why I think Ghostface is the actual unkillable killer, because he is the voice that lives in the minds of all people, of the human psyche, that terrible thing in you that says, do this, wreck your car, stab that person that's taking too long at the grocery line, you know? Over and over and over again, anyone can come up with a reason to kill someone. The biggest thing in news is crimes of passion. People all the time get fucked over by their family, or someone owes them money, or something happens, or people get pissed off. Every single murder case is pretty much like that. So you take that concept and you apply it to real life emotions in a family drama, which is pretty much what this is a soap opera drama, and someone is lashing out very violently, and it makes it so much more real. And it's so real because it can and has happened many a times. These are not assassins. These are not trained cops. These are people who are just wanting to just fucking take their anger out, and they're a little bit off. They're bad in the head, and those people are walking around in your Targets, in your stores with you, everywhere you go. They're sitting next to you in the movie theaters, and you don't even realize it. They're everywhere, and that's why it's terrifying, and that's why he's the true, ultimate, unkillable killer, because anyone can pick up that thought process and carry out his deeds. That, and his voice, Roger L. Jackson's voice, is so menacing, so to have that accompanied with it, and once you hear that and get it in your head, you can almost hear it taunting you. Sidney Prescott is the ultimate final girl in my opinion, because Neve Campbell brings an innocence and a strength to her. She is acted out beautifully and brilliantly. I work on Warner Brothers stages, Sony Pictures Studios. There's a lot of people who can act, and there's a lot of people who can't act. And there are a lot of people who can get the job done. They do more than this in that one. They go the extra mile. And it was just a really bold statement. And you can tell that people really cared about making a good film. They had something to prove on this one, so everyone was bringing their A game. They truly look terrified. They truly look like they're being attacked. And there's not that many deaths in this one, but you really feel like the characters are all in danger, even in the attack scenes whenever you know that they're going to get away. And I kind of explain that like Scooby-Doo. Everybody wants the new movie to kill off one of the original characters, and I can't stand that. I'm glad that they've lived through all four, and I want them to live through this new one. Think about Scooby-Doo is what I'm talking about, my point. In every single episode, you have Scooby, Shaggy, Daphne, Velma, and Fred, because they're the core characters. They're the main characters of the show. And yes, every single episode is the same, and it's got the same structure, and it could be cliche, but they go somewhere, they get in trouble, they figure out the mystery, and then, you know, they're in danger for a little while, but they get out of it because of their wit, because they're cunning. They're, you know, I watched the TV show Survivor. Outwit, outplay, outlast, you know? Lots of people, like cops and firefighters, go in every single day into combat and make it out alive. Sidney, Dewey, and Gale are like, you know, they're like firefighters. They're like cops. They, you know, they're in situations all the time where most of the time, you know, we're not surprised when like a cop has to go and be in a shootout with a perp and then he is alive at the end of that. We're like, oh yeah, the cop's doing his job. So why can't Sidney and Gale and Dewey be doing that? Like how Scooby-Doo and the gang do that. Can you imagine how short of a series Scooby-Doo would be if they killed off one character each episode? It'd be 5 episodes long, and then it wouldn't be the iconic franchise that it is today. Scooby-Doo is still, it's from the 70s, you know? It's amazing, everyone loves it. So there's a formula, and I love that Sidney is the main aspect of that formula. Watching her prevail, watching her outwit, watching her have strength and cunning moments where she's able to look at her resources and look at the ways around her and figure out a way out. You know, she will always figure out a way to get herself to safety, to defend herself. She can think of anything, and that's what I really admire about her. And I've had to do a lot of that kind of stuff in my life too, and I think most of us do as humans. We latch on to characters that we relate to, and it's such a great thing to be able to see someone who's so vulnerable but so smart. And that's why that final act is one of the craziest ones that it is, because coming to the realization of the things that we don't want to face is awful. It makes you want to throw up, and it's anxiety ridden, and I'm sure the adrenaline in the chest of everyone in that room when they're all trying to kill each other in the kitchen and get away, you know, it's completely and immensely terrifying. I love the situation of survival, and I really appreciate the cinematography of this film. It was so beautiful being able to see the chase scenes on the big screen. I've watched this movie countless times, and I know the layout of the house, but watching it that big, you really understand, and it's just so beautiful and picturesque, and it's almost like a dance, or like like an opera. It flows so well, this whole night of terror for her. And I know that that's an awful thing to say. Well, that was my Scream 1996 review, revisited after watching it again on the big screen. I think it's a great ensemble cast of characters. I love how Sidney is in this group of teenagers, Gail is this group of reporters, and Dewey's in this group of cops. And we all kind of follow their storylines separately throughout the movie, interwoven, and they all end up at this one place at the end. And because of terror and slashing and murder, they're the ones that are put together. It bonds them in a way that they had no idea would be changing their life over the next 25 years, and that they would need each other. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments. How often do you watch this movie? I watch it constantly, not just around Halloween time. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's my favorite franchise. It's my favorite Halloween mask, or killer mask, whatever you want to call him. I think the voice is absolutely daunting. I can't wait to see that again in this new one. That was one of the greatest things about this first film, was the manipulation, like I said, being played. It's so gut-wrenching, you know, having all of that mind fuckery is awful. Here are some of my little trinkets and knickknacks and stuff. I have a Scream VHS tape and a Scream Ultimate Collection box set. Now, this is something I got when I was very, very young, and it was a gift from my mom, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's very rare, and I've kept it in such great condition. It's one of my favorite items. It has the first 3 movies and an exclusive bonus disc, and I want to go over that more in a separate video where I go over some of my Scream items, part 2. But yes, thank you so much for watching and listening to my thoughts. Be sure to check out some of my other videos. I've done a bunch of different genres, and I plan to do a bunch more. Check out my live stream. Sometimes I do that with my friend Destiny and some of my other movie friends on here. And stay tuned for whenever I do my Scream 2 Revisited review, coming soon. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you the next time. All right, bye.